All right, we're back with part two of the Vulcan base. If you recall before, if I can come up here a little bit, we were working on that sub back there. It is an actual prop from both Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and City Beneath the Sea. And Lars is working on a base for it that's going to look like the ocean base, right?
Yeah.
And all this white that we see on here is what?
Sculptamold.
Sculptamold. We used a lot of bags.
Yeah, this took a total of 9 pounds of Sculptamold to cover this entire area here.
Which we bought in 3-pound bags from Amazon, which may sound silly. You can buy bigger bags. But when you buy the 3-pound bags, you can get the free shipping from Amazon. So it's a dumber way to buy it, but it actually is cheaper to buy the individual bags. And underneath the white is what, foam?
Yeah, no, underneath the white is a combination of wood and foam. These two areas here, these two saddles where the model's going to sit are actually wood.
Okay.
And then around it is foam and then the Sculptamold. Okay. And these areas here, these are actually carved out of foam first with a metal rod in the middle to stiffen it up, and then it's covered with the Sculptamold to give it some strength.
He's been working on that for days. That made the base, and it also made the base weigh about 9,000 pounds. But we're going to we're going to worry about that later. Mm-hmm. And
right now, so right now, the groundwork's been applied and it's dry. It's almost completely dry, and now I'm putting on the sand, which is a combination of model railroad ballast and
show us the jar.
Yeah. Right there. Can you see it?
Down. Yeah.
It's sort of a homebrew of model railroad ballast and cat litter and regular sand. Okay. Kind of so you get different size.
And is it just for texture or is it actually for looks?
No, it's for texture afterwards. So after this dries, then it'll get painted. Okay. And then I'm going to start adding vegetation like this moss here. For like rockweed, under the ocean, you'll see that there's a lot of areas that where the moss is growing on the rocks itself. So, all
right. So go ahead and do what you were doing here. So, what are you using to adhere the special sand to the base?
This is just a combination of water and white glue diluted. Okay. Thin, so you can brush it on. And then it's just a matter of putting it on, letting it dry for a few hours. So, but the first step after the Sculptamold's put on, that's got to sit for a few days. It's supposed to sit, if it's thin, it usually takes about a half an hour to an hour. But in the case of this, where it's put on fairly heavy in certain areas, it's still got some wet spots. That's got to dry totally. And then you go with this step with the sand, and you got to make sure it's dry so it doesn't start to soften the material underneath. So,
which actually took several days in this case, right?
Yeah, because it's so much and so heavy. So this stuff is just kind of random sprinkled on. There's some rocks in here too, and then I'm leaving this off the mountains and the big pinnacles and stuff because it's more of a rock kind of material, and that'll get some moss and stuff in there. And then after the moss is on, there'll be some plants like this, like some plants around here, various places like that, and some other ones too, like this, that are going to probably get used. In some other areas too. I don't know where yet, but something like that. They'll get airbrushed. They're dried plants from the craft store. And then, but that'll be, and those will all get airbrushed, but that'll be after this is painted. And this will get painted in sort of a gray brown. Okay. So, like, yeah. So.
So what you're looking at, of course, are the lights. Do those have names? Are those running lights?
Yes.
For the sub, which Lars had to rewire, based a little bit on the original placement and the original wiring that was in the prop, but we thought the wiring was a little too old to use exclusively. He was able to salvage the switch mechanism.
The switch is the 60s switch.
So, yeah, but we had to replace the bulbs and the
everything
wiring.
else, yeah.
We were concerned about that. And then here on the side, you can see the window lights, and the top of the conning tower has two lights as well.
This is fiber optics running off an LED that's placed down below because it's so thin. This is actually loose here. It's made out of wood, and they had put this in originally with two little teeny, what looked like LEDs, in a little copper tubes. And this is all like made out of wood here, so there was no room to put bulbs.
Okay, we'll turn the light back on so we can see that better.
So that's fiber optics there, doing that.
So I just wanted to show you how cool it looked in the dark. And because the lights aren't quite as spectacular when they're lit up, but you can still see where the lights are.
Go in here. In here, you can see here the bulb that they used was sort of a, it looks like a car taillight bulb at the time, and I mounted the LED right behind it, so it's in the same, roughly the same placement as the old one, right there. And then I got the top line with a product called bare metal foil, so it would broaden the light, give it more, give it a little more definition on the side. And then also...
Sorry for the shaking. We don't have zoom capability on this here, so I'm trying to get close-up shots by moving the camera. And he wants me to move again.
And anyway, it's a little hard to see, but inside there is the circuit board and the battery.
You can't really get that.
But anyway, so that's running there, and then here's the new wiring hooked up to the old switch, because the client wanted the old switch, so it still has the exterior look, his old sink and all that.
Right, we wanted to keep it as original as possible, especially because it's a prop, but at the same time, obviously there's safety issues. We don't want the whole thing to go up in smoke, because an old wire sparks or something like that. So had to find the happy medium between restoration and maintaining as much of the old original look as we could.
Yeah, and this stuff here is what they used originally. It was just taped in. It's like a frosted clear material. It's not really a diffusion material. What I used here is a LED fusion material. Just replaced this and tacked it in there, so you could see the light better.
Another piece.
So that's original 1966 material there.
It's kind of a plastic.
Yes,
it's like a piece of plastic.
Frosted a little bit, so you can't see.
Just held on with some
tape.
Gaffer's tape.
But it was actually, it held 45 years, so it wasn't, it was plenty sufficient for the time, because they were in a rush. But anyway, and then the other thing that's going to happen here is these little scratches and nicks in various places are going to get touched up with the airbrush later on. But not repainted, just touched up. Try to match it up as best as possible, especially in this front area here.
Again, trying to balance the difference between making a product that looks really nice on the shelf that people will enjoy versus doing a lot of work and really changing the structure with a whole new paint job. So all things considered, it's in really amazing shape, considering that it was used in both Voyage and a movie, and then customized, cut in half, customized, well, cut in half, but cut.
Yeah, well, it was actually cut in half. You could see the cut line here.
Right. So considering all of that it was built probably, fairly quickly, but, we're not talking about a movie here. It was made for television, so it's not like they had a huge budget and, a lot of time to put this together.
Right.
Maybe they based it off of a product they already had from another movie and they just customized it. We'll never know. But all things considered, it's held up incredibly well.
Yeah. And it's made out of mostly fiberglass. The whole hull is fiberglass. This is brass material here, and this is wood, which was common back then. The Seaview was like that too. It was like a metal, wood, and fiberglass.
But this was actually submerged, or it was never actually submerged in water?
No, they did this. They filmed this in the movie. It was dry for wet, and in Voyage, I believe it seemed like I think it was actually submerged in that.
Which is even more amazing that it's held up. And again, they probably retouched it up after they used it in Voyage to use it again in the other movie.
Mm-hmm.
But we always like when Irwin reuses his props. So we're actually quite excited by the fact that they reuse items in a variety of movies and TV shows.
And actually, the client actually counted. This was actually in the Voyage episode. Was 40 holes here when it was a ballast tank. Then it became a passenger compartment, and so that when they cut it here, this got shortened. The whole thing got shortened up, and it used to say Vulcan across here too in the Voyage episode.
So got a little ways to go on the base, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But we're definitely getting there. It sits really nicely, and it's going to look pretty darn cool. And it will have the impression, hopefully, of a submarine just barely scraping along the bottom of the sea, as in Voyage, the bottom of the sea.
The next thing will be on the airbrushing the ocean floor, and then the vegetation.
Because, as we know, the paint is what really brings it to life. You can mess up a really excellent model with a lousy paint job, or you can really, really, really bring it to life with a good paint job, as we've seen on both models and Face Off. You watch how much a paint job makes a difference. All right, so that's where we are. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and we will do our very best to respond to them. See you later.